Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Now today I'm going to be doing a ranking of all the UK Beatles singles, and when I say all, I mean from the original discography of 1962 to 1970. So I won't be including any of the Tony Sheridan singles like My Bonnie or Ain't She Sweet, as much as I genuinely do like those songs. And I'll also not be including Real Love and Free as a Bird. So this is just going to be from Love Me Do to Let It Be. Now, the main reason I'm doing this video today is just because I wanted to do something to celebrate the fact that I now have 300 subscribers. And on that note, I just want to say a huge thank you to everyone who watches my videos and of course everyone who has subscribed. It's so fantastic whenever you leave me comments. I love reading them and replying to them, and it's so great to hear from all the other fellow Beatles and vinyl fans out there. So I just want to say a really big thank you to everyone who watches my videos. But anyway, when I was thinking of something to do for my 300 subscribers video, I remembered a video I watched by a channel called TheVinylBasement, and I'll leave a link to his video in the description, in which he lists his top 10 favourite Beatles singles. And I always liked that video, and so I thought I'd do my own kind of spin on it. And instead of doing top 10, I'm going to rank all the Beatles singles from my least favourite at number 22 to obviously my favourite at number 1. Now, I'm going to try and get through these fairly quickly, because if I spend a minute on each single, then that's 22 minutes. So I'm going to try and keep it shorter than that. But without further ado, let's get into the countdown. So at number 22, and I don't think this will come as much of a surprise to anyone, is Love Me Do, released in 1962. Now, by no means do I dislike Love Me Do. Of course I don't. It's still a nice song, although it's nothing particularly, wow. It's nothing too sophisticated, but it's still a nice little single in itself. And this is really kind of humble beginnings for the Beatles, and obviously with each single they'll get better and better as they go along. But yeah, at number 22 here is Love Me Do. One thing I will point out actually just before I go on is that I based this list purely on the A side. I haven't really factored the B side into my ranking, and that's because I'm entertaining the possibility of perhaps even doing maybe like a top 10 favourite Beatles B sides or something like that. But I'll give that a think. Anyway, at number 21 is the follow-up to Love Me Do, Please Please Me. Now I know a lot of people would rank this quite a bit higher, and again I do absolutely love this song. It's fantastic. I would say it's at least twice as good, if not more, than Love Me Do. But unfortunately this is just where it happens to have ended up in the ranking. But as I say, great song and a brilliant follow-up to Love Me Do. And at number 20 we move to 1966 for Paperback Writer. Now, I've always liked Paperback Writer. It's got some nice lyrics to it, and it's always nice to sing along to. I'd say out of all the kind of 66 to 67 material, this is probably slightly less interesting, but by no means does that take away from the song. It's still a really catchy number and a great single from 1966. At number 19, we have the Beatles' third UK single, and that is From Me to You. An absolutely brilliant track, really catchy. What's interesting is that I believe Thank You Girl, which was the B-side, was originally going to be the A-side of this single, but then they swapped it round at the last minute. But to be honest, I think I like the two songs equally, so it probably wouldn't have made much of a difference in my ranking of the singles. But anyway, From Me to You, great track. And of course, this is the original mono version of From Me to You, which means it has the harmonica on. And if you ever get a chance to hear the stereo version, you'll notice that there's no harmonica on that version. Anyway, at number 18, we have the very first Apple single on the list. And I've got Something from the Abbey Road album and George Harrison's one and only Beatles A-side. It's a really nice track, Something. What I like about this song, and indeed many of the Abbey Road songs, is that it's
quite a different style for the Beatles. Really, it's not just like, you know, a generic catchy pop song. It's really nice. It's really soothing, and George Harrison does an excellent job on both the vocals and the lyrics, as well as his guitar playing, of course. So really nice Beatles single. And as place number 17, we have another Apple single, and that is Get Back, also from 1969. And this appeared on the Let It Be album. Get Back is a really excellent song. And again, it is different to the stuff the Beatles normally do. But it's just a fantastic track, and it is one of the highlights of the Let It Be album for me.
Following swiftly behind Get Back is yet another Apple single, and it is
The Ballad of John and Yoko. Now, although I placed this at spot number 16 out of 22, I still do believe that this is a quite an underrated Beatles single. And I really, really like it. I think it's an excellent song. I love John and Paul's vocals on it. I would have liked to have ranked this a little bit higher, but unfortunately, it just hasn't worked out that way. But the Ballad of John and Yoko, I really, really like.
and for single number 15, we are moving to back to the Parlophone label
For Lady Madonna, 1968, catchy track, and the last single on Parlophone. But yeah, I would like Lady Madonna again. The lyrics are quite funny and interesting, and I think Paul McCartney does a really good job of singing this one, as always. But I think the way his voice sounds on Lady Madonna, I really like that.
And at number 16, we have the double A side of
We Can Work It Out, and of course, Day Tripper. Now, this is a brilliant single as well. Two songs which are quite different. One sung by Paul, one sung by John, but they really complement each other to create an excellent double A side. In fact, the very first ever double A side, We Can Work It Out and Day Tripper. So, as well as being two amazing songs, this kind of really introduced something to the world of music and vinyl, the concept of a double A side. So, anyway, two excellent tracks by two of the Beatles.
and number 13
Is the amazing Hello Goodbye. Really great track, and I like the music video for this where you see the Beatles in their Sgt. Pepper's outfits. I think that's really good. But Hello Goodbye was actually a Beatles song I was familiar with before I properly got into the Beatles, and so I've always liked this song. It's really uplifting, really catchy, and it's just a great, great single from 1967.
and hot on the heels of that single is one of their other 1967
Contributions, the legendary All You Need Is Love. This is a song you hear on the radio quite often, and I'm not surprised because it's absolutely brilliant. And it was recorded live as well. And it's just one of those songs which you can't help but sing along to, especially with the kind of chorus at the end. It's a fantastic Beatles single, really is. And again, this was one I knew before I was into the Beatles, which just shows how loved this single still is. 50 years on now, actually, yeah, 50 years to the year now.
And at spot number 11, we have the double A side of
Eleanor Rigby,
and of course Yellow Submarine.
Now, to be honest, I probably couldn't really decide which of these songs I prefer. I mean, Yellow Submarine often gets just branded as like a silly song or a kid's song, but it's still really good. You know, I'm not going to pretend like it's not. It's still a really, really good song. And of course, Eleanor Rigby, amazing song from the Revolver album. It wouldn't be Revolver without Eleanor Rigby. And really, these songs again just complement each other nicely. And it's also good to see Ringo get an A side, a Beatles A side, albeit a double A side. But anyway, two fantastic songs.
Okay, so we are now moving into my top 10 Beatles singles. Now, I'll be honest, with a lot of these singles, there's not very much difference at all, to be honest. So, with some of these, it was really just a matter of organising them into a list rather than making a list of how I would definitively rank them. But anyway, at number 10, I've got, from 1964,
I Feel Fine. Really like this one. One of my favourite parts about the song actually is the guitar and the bass line on the very intro of the song. I really like that, and it's just all in all a very very catchy number and an excellent single all round. As well, all the Beatles singles were really. I suppose I could really say that for all of them. But I Feel Fine again, just one of the fantastic early-ish Beatles singles. And at number 9, we move all the way to 1970 for the Beatles' very last single, or at least until later stuff anyway, but of their original discography, the very last single, and that is the unbelievable Let It Be. Now again, this is one I would have liked to have ranked a little bit higher, but you know, anyway, it's just an amazing song, and of course the single version is the one with the organ solo rather than the guitar solo, and although I do slightly prefer the album version with the guitar, the single version is still amazing as well. And you hear this Beatles song on the radio every single day, and it's one which I know even a lot of people my age who aren't Beatles fans know this song, so it's really outstanding, this song. And it's probably one of my favourite Paul McCartney Beatles songs, I think. At number 8, we have a song which I absolutely adore from 1964. I listen to the song all the time, and it's A Hard Day's Night. Brilliant track, this, absolutely brilliant track, and obviously this was the title song for the film A Hard Day's Night, but it's a great film and obviously a great album, but this is obviously also an outstanding track. Really, really good. One of my favourite John Lennon Beatles singles. I just don't have a bad word to say about this single. It's so, so catchy. And what I also really like is I like Paul McCartney's bits in the middle as well. You know, When I'm Home, Feeling You Holding Me Tight and all that. So I think together that just culminates in this amazing song. Now at the number 7 spot, it's a single which I did initially have slightly lower down the list, but I've decided to put it up to number 7. And that is Ticket to Ride. Now, if you've seen my ranking of the Beatles albums video, which I'll also link to in the description, then you'll know that I highly regard the Help album. I think it's really underrated. But anyway, Ticket to Ride is one of my absolute favourite tracks from that album. I think it's amazing. Not only do I like the guitar, I also really like Ringo's drumming in this song. I think it's really, really good. And obviously, vocal performances are top notch as well. But honestly, I could go on forever about Ticket to Ride. I think it's honestly one of their best mid-60s songs. And next we have number 6. So this is the last single which didn't quite make it into my top 5. And I was going to have this one in my top 5, but it's ended up being at number 6. And that's Can't Buy Me Love, which is the other single from the Hard Day's Night album. And as I said, on this top 10 list, there really isn't much difference between these singles. So, you know, I'm not saying this is like hugely better than the song A Hard Day's Night, but again, it's just really, really catchy. And despite the fact it's fairly simplistic, I mean, you know, there's no real harmonies or anything, it's just Paul McCartney. It's just such a catchy tune. I think it's one of the catchiest Beatles songs. And when I was first getting into the Beatles, this was always one of my favourite tracks. And it's such a good song, and still, like the rest of the Beatles music, stands the test of time, 50 plus years on. So we now have my top 5 Beatles singles. First one we have, and to be honest, I actually surprised myself that I put this one in the top 5. It's Help, which is obviously the title of that film and album. But such a great track, Help. Really, really nicely done in every sense of the word. I'll be honest, I think I do actually prefer the stereo version of this song because it's actually a slightly different take, I think. If you hear the stereo version, then you'll know what I mean. But the mono version is still excellent as well. Everything about the song is great. John Lennon's vocals are absolutely amazing. And I just love Help. It's one of the Beatles songs I listen to probably the most often. It's just a really fantastic song. And number 4, we have the absolutely legendary Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane. You know, I mean, what a single this is from 1967. You know, 2 absolutely outstanding Beatles songs, and it's a tragedy that this never got to number 1. it's even more of a tragedy that Engelbert Humperdinck stopped it from happening. I mean, out of all the artists, could have been the Rolling Stones or someone like that. No, it was Engelbert Humperdinck that stopped this from getting to number one. But oh well, But I'm getting off track. Anyway, this is absolutely outstanding. 2 tracks. It's amazing to hear the lyrics and the description of Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields, which you can go and visit in Liverpool, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that, and I would definitely recommend doing that. But it's great to hear about all the things in their childhood, the barbers and all that. And what's interesting is that I believe for the 50th anniversary of the Sgt. Pepper's album, they're reissuing it on vinyl with Strawberry Fields Forever and Penny Lane on there. Now, they were originally going to be on the album, but they were like, EMI needed to release a single, and so they were forced to release this as a single, meaning that they couldn't really put it on the album. And that was always kind of the tragedy, really. But fortunately, we're now going to be able to hear that album in its original intended way for the first time. But anyway, this is my number 4 choice. Now, to be honest, options 2 and 3, I could debate which way around I could have them until the cows come home. So I've just put them in this order, but I'm not saying I really prefer one more than the other. So at number 3, we've got I Want to Hold Your Hand from 1963. Now, this song really needs no introduction. It's one of the Beatles' most well-known songs. It's iconic of Beatlemania, and man, they sold millions of copies. But, what an absolute classic Beatles early track, I Want to Hold Your Hand. And honestly, even live versions to do with this, on the Ed Sullivan Show and stuff like that, are absolutely astonishing. So a great bit of songwriting, as well as singing, of course, by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. And at the number 2 spot, She Loves You. Now, again, to be honest, I could say exactly the same thing about I Want to Hold Your Hand and She Loves You. Both absolutely astonishing tracks. She Loves You is slightly faster and perhaps a little more upbeat than I Want to Hold Your Hand, but it's one of those infectiously catchy songs which you just can't help but sing along to. And it was one of the first Beatles songs I got into. And again, they always do really, really good live versions of this. But really, She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand are the two songs which really properly broke the Beatles in both the UK and the American market, as well as around the world, of course. But yeah, absolutely amazing song. And at number 1 is Hey Jude. Now, I know it's pretty cliche to have this one at number 1. It's a lot of people's number 1s. But I honestly just absolutely adore Hey Jude. It's such an amazing track. And honestly, considering it's 7 minutes long, it's so easy to listen to. It just flies by. And Paul McCartney obviously does outstanding performance on this as well. But it's just such... It's catchy in the chorus, but it's also soothing at the same time. And really, I think, being released in 1968, it kind of provides a really nice contrast to the hectic, chaotic White Album, obviously, which also came out in 1968. So just to have a nice soothing song like this really counters that well. But yeah, as I say, I could talk about Hey Jude for absolutely ages, but it's just such an iconic track. Alright, so it looks like I was just about able to keep this under 20 minutes. It was a little longer than I intended, so apologies for that. But I just want to round off by saying, again, that's not a definitive ranking. It'll change, like the albums, pretty much on a daily basis. But I just thought I'd give it a go. So I just want to say one more big thank you to everyone who watches my videos and is subscribed to my channel. And thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope to see you all next time.